The film opens with rows of apple trees, and we see a bunch of apples scattered across the ground. Many of them are smashed, rotting, and crawling with worms. Just then, a little girl appears, picks up an apple, and starts heading home. Her mom spots her and calls out to her right away. The mom's name is Jessica, and she had two kids, this girl and her younger brother. The girl hands the apple to her mom, Jessica. Since their house is already filled with apples, all of which are spoiled, Jessica tosses the apple into a basket. So, because of that, her daughter got upset and said, "Mom, I brought that apple for you with so much love, and you just put it in your basket. You really hurt my feelings." Anyway, it turned out that Jessica was actually addicted to some dangerous substances. But a few days before, she had been in the hospital to get treatment for it. That's why she had quit the substances for now. Her husband also had a really bad habit with those dangerous substances. Now Jessica had stopped using, but her husband hadn't. That's why he doesn't live with her, he stays somewhere else. She had been left with the responsibility of her kids, so Jessica had to care for them on her own. The house where she and her children lived had belonged to her father, who had passed away. The place was old and falling apart, with hardly any furniture or belongings inside. The condition of the rooms and doors was terrible, especially the one to the storeroom. Once shut, that door couldn't be opened from the inside. So, whenever Jessica needed to grab something from there, she would either place an object in front of the door to stop it from closing or use her foot to keep it open. This had happened several times before when she had gone in, and the door had closed behind her. Because her husband used to love her, he would always open the door from the outside and take Jessica out. But now, he doesn't live with them anymore because he doesn't want to give up his dangerous powers. He also refused to go to the hospital and get treated. He knew that, because of these dangerous powers, he couldn't stay with his wife and children. So now, Jessica has to stop the door from closing herself. Jessica thinks that since she doesn't have any money, she'll make apple jam and sell it. Her mom used to earn money doing the same thing. She knew a great jam recipe. But because the apples were melting and had stains on them, the plan didn't work out. Now she didn't understand what to do. What kind of job would help her make a lot of money? She had taxes to pay, a debt hanging over her, and she was responsible for raising two kids. With all of this on her mind, she was starting to get really anxious. Then she thought about going to her mom. Since her mom lived in the city, she figured she'd definitely be able to find a good job there. So, she called her mother. Her mom said, "Honey, if you're coming, make sure you're ready to work. You used to be hooked on that stuff. I know you're clean now, but because of that, I don't trust you as much as I used to." Jessica said, "Mom, I'm heading to work. I've got a lot of responsibilities." After that, she began packing up her things. The stuff she needed was in the storage room. The door was open, so she went inside. But suddenly, there was a gust of wind, and the door slammed shut, trapping Jessica inside. She started to panic, thinking about her two young kids. She was worried they'd be scared being alone. Her daughter was especially small and couldn't open the door. But still, Jessica called her daughter and asked her to bring a screwdriver. The kid brought it over. As soon as she grabbed it, Jessica started trying to open the door. But no matter how hard she tried, the door just wouldn't budge. Like I said before, the door can only be opened from the outside. Luckily, her husband showed up. He opened the door, and Jessica stepped out. He started teasing her, saying, "Jessica, I'm not even surprised anymore that you're stuck in the storeroom. This has practically become your daily routine." Jessica replied, "First of all, because of your bad habits, you're not even supposed to be here. And second, yeah, thanks for helping me. But now, get out of here. Because of my past, I don't want it to affect me or my children. I've overcome my addiction." But he brought his friend along with him, a guy named Sammy. Sammy wasn't a good person. He had his own addiction, and he used to kidnap children and harm them. That's why Jessica never liked him. She didn't want him around at all. She kindly told her husband, "Please leave and take Sammy with you. Don't ever bring him back here." Hearing this, Sammy got angry. He walked up to Jessica and said, "What did I tell you? What's your problem with me?" Then, he started turning her husband against her. He says, "Your wife thinks all wrong about me. I'm really upset." Hearing this, her husband starts believing Sammy. He gets mad at Jessica, and out of nowhere, he slaps her. He was angry because she had quit the addiction, making her better than him. But still, Jessica says, "You can do whatever you want with me, but I'll still say this. Sammy shouldn't come here, and neither should you until you get rid of your addiction. I don't want it affecting our kids badly. We have to take care of them. So just leave." Hearing this, her husband gets furious. First, he slaps her again, then picks her up, throws her in the storeroom, and locks the door. Now Jessica is trapped inside. Her husband says she's to blame for everything and adds that the situation they're in today is all because of her dad. "Because he didn't leave us any money?" she cries, pleading, "Please, let out your anger and get me out of here." But her husband had already shut the door and placed a board in front of it to keep it from breaking. She begs him again, "Please, keep Sammy away from my kids." Jessica wanted to call the police, but realized her phone had fallen outside while her husband was locking her in. He had also taken all the money from her purse. That money was supposed to get her to her mother's house. But now, she couldn't leave because she's trapped in the storeroom. Even if she could get out, she had no money to go anywhere. When her husband nailed the door shut, a nail pierced Jessica's hand, injuring her severely. She began crying out from the pain, but despite her distress, her thoughts were with her children. She told her daughter, "Take your brother and go to the room. Lock the door from the inside and don't open it for anyone." Her daughter followed her instructions, settling in the room with her brother. After a while, once her husband and Sammy had left, the girl came out and said, "Mom, brother's crying. Maybe he's hungry. When will you come out?" Through her tears, Jessica replied, "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I want to come out, but I'm stuck here. Do this. Sit by your brother, and he'll stop crying." Even though her daughter was quite young, she was smart enough to understand. Jessica tells her daughter, "Bring me my phone." The girl starts asking questions. "Mom, why do you need the phone in there?" Jessica gets a bit annoyed by the timing of her questions, but then, after calming down, replies, "I want to call sweetheart." The girl hands over the phone, holding it from below through a small gap. Jessica grabs the phone and considers calling the helpline for help, but there's no signal. She sits there, worried, knowing her house is so isolated that there's no chance of help from nearby. Her daughter then says, "Mom, I need to use the bathroom. Come out." Jessica responds, "How can I come out? I'm stuck in here. Just go to the bathroom yourself." The girl replied, "No, Mom, I want to stay here. I don't want to go far from you." Because of this, she ended up peeing right there. But in the room upstairs, her younger brother was also there. It was time to change his diaper. Jessica showed her how to do it. The girl went to her brother and changed his diaper perfectly. Later that night, the weather was awful, and the girl got frightened by the thunder. Her brother was asleep, but she was still awake. She moved close to the door and lay down. Jessica reassured her, "Sweetie, I'll be out soon, so don't be scared, okay?" Eventually, she fell asleep. Jessica thought, "Why don't I just break the door down?" She started looking around for something to use, but found nothing. Now the night had passed. In the morning, her daughter says, "Mom, my little brother and I are hungry." Hearing this, Jessica gives her the jam she found in the storeroom. The kids eat it and fill their stomachs, and Jessica eats some too. She hoped that today she would get out of there. She thought her husband would come. His anger must have cooled down, but he didn't come. She couldn't stay there any longer. She had to get out because the kids were anxious being alone. They needed their mom. Her child started crying. Jessica told her daughter, "Go calm your brother down, and when he's asleep, come back to me. I need your help." After settling her brother, she returned to her mom. Jessica said, "Find something I can use to break the door." The child, being small, couldn't find anything suitable, but she tried. She brought various things like wood, toys, spoons, and forks. Seeing this, Jessica got really angry. She threw everything at the door and said, "What are you giving me? I don't want this. It's not going to make a difference." When she got angry, the child started crying. Jessica then realized she had been too harsh and said, "Okay, sweetheart, I'm sorry. I was too hard on you. Please don't cry." As she said this, she began to cry emotionally because she had made many mistakes in her life that she regretted. The biggest mistake was marrying her husband. In the storeroom, she had a small amount of intoxicating powder that she wanted to use, but with a lot of willpower, she stopped herself. Anyway, Since her daughter didn't bring anything useful, she had to use the screwdriver. She tried to break the floor with it, but she had to do it with one hand because her other hand was hurt. She was in pain and at risk of infection. Then Sammy arrived, and he was alone. The girl told her mom about it. Jessica got scared when she heard this. She told her daughter, "Sweetie, go to the room and lock the door. Don't open it for anyone." The girl did what her mom said, but that man was already there, which terrified her. Once he got there, he started mocking Jessica. She begged, "Please open the door," but he refused, saying, "I don't interfere in personal matters." Listening to this, Jessica realizes why he's here. He's come to torture her kids. Terrified, she tells him to leave and stay away from her children, but he doesn't budge. Jessica then offers him some powder her husband gave her, saying if he promises to leave and never return, she'll give it to him. Sammy agrees and asks for the powder. Jessica, not trusting him, says she's stuck and can't get to the door. Instead, she tells him to put his hand through the door, and she'll place the powder in his hand. Sammy, being cautious, hesitates but ultimately puts his hand through. As he reached his hand inside, Jessica bravely struck his hand with the screwdriver. Then, she hit the screwdriver with a rock, pinning his hand to the floor. He screamed in pain, but his intoxication made him start spewing insults. First, he pleaded, "Let me go. I won't hurt any kids." But Jessica ignored him, knowing he was lying. Then he confessed he had been in the hospital trying to kick his addiction. "I wanted to quit, to better myself," he said. "But then I realized what's the point? No one cares if I live or die." By saying this, he broke Jessica inside and tried to manipulate her. Sammy said, "I know you want to get high, but you're scared. You'll start using the powder, just wait and see." Hearing this, Jessica started crying because, to some extent, it was true, but she couldn't let herself fully acknowledge it. It was night, and it was freezing cold, but Jessica still didn't let go of his hand. As morning came, her daughter started approaching Jessica. When she realized this, Jessica began shouting. She asked, "Why are you here? Go away," because she knew he would definitely get trapped, but he still had enough strength to grab the girl. However, since she was a child and had been alone without her mother all night, this time she wouldn't leave, but Jessica would. She started moving closer, and then Sammy grabbed her. Jessica was terrified. She had a lighter with her. To save her daughter's life, she set the place on fire. As soon as Sammy's hand got burned, he let go of her daughter and began writhing in pain. Seeing that she might burn to death too, Jessica quickly grabbed a cloth and put out the flames. Sammy was unconscious, looking as if he was dead. Feeling shattered, Jessica considered using drugs to numb her pain, hoping to escape it for a while. Just before she could, she noticed a Bible. Inside, she found some money her dad had left her. After reading a few verses from the Bible and breaking down in tears, she threw the powder away and knocked the screwdriver out of Sammy's hand. He was out cold, so he didn't notice anything. Jessica started breaking through the ceiling instead of the floor. She managed to break through, climbed up, and reached the bathroom. She came out and rushed to check on her kids, worried they might have been hurt. Thankfully, they were okay. The kids were hungry, the food was in the car, and Sammy had the keys. She quietly grabbed the keys and headed to the car with the children, but it was pouring rain outside, so she went back home with them. It was winter, and the kids were drenched from the rain. That's why she left them at home. Jessica went out to get the food herself. As she was picking up the food that had fallen from the car, we see Sammy awake, watching her. When Jessica comes to the door, she finds it's locked. Sammy shut it from the inside. Panic sets in as Jessica realizes her kids are trapped inside, and Sammy could hurt them. She manages to break in and rushes to the room. Sammy's holding a knife to one of the kids. Jessica begs him, pleading, "Please, the kids are innocent, they haven't done anything to you," but Sammy's set on harming them. Just then, Jessica's husband bursts in with a gun. He demands that Sammy let the kids go at gunpoint. Sammy releases that Jessica's husband grabs the intoxicating powder and money, telling Jessica to come with him. She worries that if she refuses, he'll lose his temper and lock her in the storeroom again. So, she agreed to go with him so she could eventually escape. She sent her husband out to get food and slipped a sleeping pill into his sandwich. After he ate it, he started injecting drugs. When it was Jessica's turn, she tried to grab his gun. Her husband caught on and began hitting her. This time, she fought back, hitting him right back. When he started to lose consciousness, she threw him out the window. A few days later, she had figured out how to live there and discovered a great jam recipe which was written in that book. At first, she didn't pay much attention to it, being high from the drugs. Now, her situation had improved, she was making good money and had repaired her house. This story shows how harmful drug use can be, so it's best to stay away from it.